Picture your worst day of eating. Maybe you skipped lunch. Maybe dinner was late. Now imagine that happening for 3 days straight, with no fridge, no store, and no guarantee tomorrow is any better. That was Tuesday for most of human history. Not the feast. Not the mammoth roast around the fire. The bad day. The quiet, hungry, waiting day. And it turns out that day, not the good one, shaped almost everything about how you eat, crave, and worry about food right now. You probably picture ancient humans as constant hunters, dragging home meat every evening like a sitcom rerun. That image is wrong. Researchers who actually lived alongside modern foraging groups found something stranger. Anthropologist Kristen Hawkes spent years studying the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last populations on Earth still foraging much of their food the old way. She tracked how often Hadza men returned from a hunt with nothing. Nothing at all. Some studies put the failure rate above 60%. More than half the time, hunters came home empty-handed. Not because they were bad hunters. Because hunting large animals is, and always was, a gamble stacked against you. So what did people eat on those days? This is where the story gets interesting. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe, who also worked extensively with the Hadza, documented that women's foraging, mostly digging up tubers, gathering baobab fruit, and collecting berries, was far more reliable than men's hunting. On a bad hunting day, the camp didn't starve. It ate roots. Bitter, fibrous, unglamorous roots, dug out of dry ground with a sharpened stick. Hour after hour of digging for calories that a modern person would barely recognize as food. Doesn't that change the picture? The bad day wasn't a crisis. It was Tuesday. It was Wednesday. It was most days. Camps built their entire social structure around the assumption that meat was a bonus, not a baseline. When a hunt succeeded, it was shared, loudly and immediately, across the whole group. Anthropologists call this widespread meat sharing, and it wasn't generosity in the way you might think. It was insurance. You shared your rare lucky catch today because you knew that next week, or next month, you'd be the one with empty hands, relying on someone else's luck instead. Here's a question worth sitting with. Why does your brain still crave meat, fat, and sugar so intensely, even now that bad days rarely mean going hungry? The answer traces back to exactly this kind of scarcity. Your ancestors' bodies evolved to prize calorie-dense, rare foods precisely because those foods were unreliable. A body that didn't crave fat when it found it, that didn't gorge on honey or animal fat when the opportunity appeared, was a body that starved during the next bad stretch. That craving wasn't a flaw. It was survival math, running quietly in the background for 100,000 years. Primatologist and biological anthropologist Richard Wrangham has argued something even more fundamental. Cooking, he suggests, didn't just make food taste better. It made marginal, hard-to-digest foods survivable at all. Roots and tubers, the actual backbone of the bad day diet, are often toxic or nearly indigestible raw. Cooking unlocked calories your ancestors' bodies couldn't otherwise access. Wrangham's research suggests that without fire, without the ability to turn a bitter root into something edible, the bad day survival strategy simply wouldn't have worked. Fire wasn't a luxury around ancient life. It was the machine that turned failure into food. Think about what this means for a single bad day, 10,000 years ago. No hunt. No luck. Just a small group, walking slowly through dry grassland, scanning the ground for a slight bulge that might mean a tuber underneath. Digging for 20 minutes to get one fistful of starchy root. Doing that again. And again. Then walking back to camp as the light faded, carrying not triumph, but just enough. Just enough to get everyone through to tomorrow, when maybe, someone's spear would find its mark. Isn't it strange that this quiet, grinding routine is the one nobody puts in a documentary? The dramatic hunt gets the spotlight. The daily grind of digging, foraging, and rationing rarely does. But the digging is the real story. It's the part that happened every single day, while the hunt happened only sometimes. If you had to guess which one shaped human psychology more deeply, wouldn't you now bet on the boring one? There's a modern mirror here that's hard to ignore. You still feel a small jolt of anxiety when the fridge looks empty, even if there's a grocery store 2 minutes away and money in your account. That anxiety isn't really about today. It's an ancient alarm system, built for a world where an empty larder could mean a genuinely bad week, misfiring gently in a world where it usually doesn't have to. You still feel disproportionate excitement over free food, over a full plate, over dessert you didn't expect. That's not gluttony. That's 100,000 years of your ancestors' good days being rare enough to deserve real celebration. Consider, too, why so many people today feel a pull toward foraged, primal, or root vegetable-heavy diets, chasing something they can't quite name. It's not nostalgia for a golden age, because there wasn't one. It's closer to a body dimly remembering that this, tubers, bitter greens, occasional fat, was the actual baseline for nearly all of human existence, and the feast was the exception that proved how rare abundance really was. So what actually sustained early humans through their worst stretches? Not luck. Not heroics. A patient, unglamorous system, reliable plant foraging as the floor, opportunistic hunting as the occasional ceiling, fire as the technology that made marginal food survivable, and sharing as the social insurance that spread risk across an entire group instead of leaving each person to gamble alone. It worked. It worked well enough that you exist, reading this, on a day when a bad day just means a delayed lunch. Which brings you back to that worst day of eating you pictured at the start. Skipped lunch. Late dinner. A minor inconvenience by any historical standard. But somewhere underneath that mild irritation is an old system, built by your ancestors' bad days, quietly still running, still keeping score, still waiting, just in case, for the next one.